Good evening and welcome to the Village of Austin Planning Board meeting of April 28th, 2020. Public health and safety concerns associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. The board is meeting via video conference using the Zoom platform in accordance with the governor's executive order, specifically 202.11 or .1 rather. There is no public participation in person tonight. Rather, the public can watch the live meeting online through Zoom. Notice of tonight's meeting was published as required and posted on the village website. The web notice included instructions for members of the public to access the meeting and participate in any public hearings. Comments will only be taken during the public hearing portions of the meeting as usual. In order to participate, please do the following. Members of the public attending online via the Zoom app may use the raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you would like to make a comment. The feature is located on the bottom of your screen. Those attending via telephone can press *9, or I think that's, *9. The meeting host will see that your hand is raised or that you have pressed the *9 and will unmute those waiting one at a time so that you can speak. Lastly, comments can also be emailed during the meeting to jmartinez@villageofaustin.org. Any written comments will be read into the record. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and a video transcript will be provided at a later date. So that said, we're going to just set up some ground rules. In order to keep the meeting orderly and ensure that we get a clear recording, please follow these ground rules. When you are given access to speak, please state your name and address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit your comments to the matter which is the subject of the hearing. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off and access removed. Board members, please mute yourselves when you're not speaking. Board members, I will call on you one at a time to speak to avoid everyone speaking at once. If you wish to speak at any time when I'm not calling on you, you may also use the raise hand function or literally just raise your hand so I can see you and call on you. We will use roll call voting for the purposes of all board motions. This is to ensure that the record is clear. I'd like to thank everyone for their patience as we all negotiate the new way of getting around things. For myself, this is a whole new experience in all my years of doing these meetings. This will be the first virtual one, so I guess we're kind of gaming tonight. That said, let's do a roll call so we can get the meeting started. That said, Jeff Gasparo.
Present.
Michael Aronson.
Present.
Bobby Bowker.
Present.
David Chow. David Chow.
Present.
Good. Seth Roy.
Can you hear me?
Present.
Yep. Alberto Fernandez.
Present.
Okay. And we have our alternates too, I believe. Eric Talbot and Barasa. They're here. Great. We also have Jaime Martinez, our new planning director. I'd like to welcome Jaime on board. He started, I think, about a month ago. We haven't physically met each other yet, but we're looking for the, for the day that happens. Jamie Kane, our board secretary. Amanda Brosey, the village land use attorney. And from Keller Sessions, we have Brian Hildebrand tonight. So that's my only script. So let's get into the meeting now. I guess we'll start with our BAR applications. First one is Planning Board 719, BAR 1519. It's 8189 South Highland Ave, Birchbrook Manor.
All right, I'm just going to add in the individuals from Birchbrook Manor. Who is that? Who do I add again? Jamie Kane? Is good.
John Fry,
John.
Dan Patrick. I don't know who else was here.
Rajiv.
John Fry, Dan Patrick, Jacqueline Tyler.
Rajiv.
Yes.
Okay, Rajiv. All right. Is Jacqueline Tyler as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right, John. We have Rajiv, Dan Patrick, and Jacqueline Tyler. Is there anybody else that needs to be promoted?
I think that's it.
All right.
So I think the last time we met was February, and I guess John had, after the approval presentation about the architectural finishes, and I think there were a few comments, and I figured John would come back and give us kind of the overview of what we're looking at.
Yes, that's an accurate summary. We've returned with enhanced images, some overviews, some pre and post images. So we're ready to run through those. Do we screen share this, or is that you, Jamie? Perfect. Or is that Jacqueline?
It's me. No, I've already set it up. So I've got the first
Terrific.
sheet up
So
shared
first
already.
of all, thank you all for continuing to facilitate the process. It's obviously very important at many levels. So thank you for ramping up this effort via Zoom. And one of the notions regarding the plan, and primarily the only reason that we're highlighting the plan here as a part of the enhanced presentation, was the introduction of the internal trash rooms in each garage. So plan-wise, that was the only real development in each garage. And so each garage now has a 2-container trash compartment integrated into the plan. Shall we scroll? Next image. So these were the images that have previously been shared. I do have samples. I'm not sure how that's going to work, that I can attempt to bring them close to the camera at the end of this, but they're supporting the black shingle notion, the white siding. We have black standing seam roof, black garage doors, and black window trim. So those, the supporting images clustered to the left there have been sort of relevant stylistic images that we've shared, but now we have the enhanced renderings to support these. Black
And
white.
just as a note to John, so those are the same samples that were brought in at the last ARB meeting. They haven't changed.
Right. Would you like to see the roof? Shall we attempt the roof shingle share now?
Well, are these roof shingle pictures that you have here close-up images? I can actually zoom into these images here if you'd like that.
Yes. And the image to the far right is the sample I have, the actual sample. But I suspect the level of resolution is going to be difficult, if not impossible, to compare. But it's a 3-tab architectural profile shingle, timberline charcoal. You know, it's a fairly nice architectural shingle, straightforward charcoal. And I think if we, you know, now that we have the enhanced images, it's going to be a supporting element as we scroll down. So this delineates the fields of primarily white siding, the metal black window and metal roofing trim. You saw the roofing shingles, the black garage doors. It's a very simple palette of materials. Black metal railing.
I'd like to ask a question.
I'm sorry, David, again?
I would like to ask a question.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
How much of the roof area will be covered by solar panels?
Well, so if we go down to the next image, these are the roof planes. These are the long, low sloping roof planes back to the west. And the building orientation and the westerly exposure are the prime candidates for solar panels if they're integrated into this project. That remains to be seen, quite frankly. But the areas to the left and right and in between and above the dormers are very large, right? In the straight on rear elevation, you can begin to perceive how large the area is, but when you look at the low sloping westerly slope, you can really begin to understand the order of magnitude. So all of those are concealed essentially on the back side. All of that roof area is concealed on the back side of the building.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have a collection of images. The center image, the larger image, is an enhanced version of the line drawing we've been sharing. The landscape has been existing and proposed as is been imported here as faithfully as possible. The grading area that will be the emergency vehicle backup lane to the right and in the foreground, which is essentially a grasscrete feature between the shrubs and the one tree, it extends back and beyond actually the image here, but you can see how that's concealed in the planting area and existing vegetation along the northerly edge, and how the building steps down in the landscape, and their incremental planting elements, both in the foreground of the larger end units and in between the smaller interior units. And the existing tree line along the easterly property edge, and roughly following the existing stream bed, much of that existing tree line will indeed remain. And of course, the tree line essentially to just to the south of the driveway entry. There's a lower image below that, and capturing this exact view from the street via Google will prove to be very challenging, but the lower left-hand image is essentially that general area, albeit the drive is a little further up to the right. There are two elements to highlight here. Some of the low underbrush that is, they're not mature trees. They're plant material that's grown by default over time. Some of that has already been trimmed out as it relates to improving the sight lines at that intersection. But the view shed in is going to be the view shed into the property is still going to be fairly compact. As you come down Macy, you can see the studies on the upper right, the before and the after. And then the aerials give you a sense of how it sits in still fairly mature tree lines when you back away and look at the surrounding area.
If anybody would like me to zoom in, I can do that. So just let me know, please.
Hey, John, it's Bobby Bowker. Question for you. What are you envisioning for gutters and like water elimination from the property?
All of the roof runoff is managed through gutters.
Yeah.
They're implied here as white gutters. I think there's a fair chance that we would consider black gutters, but what you see in the renderings are a white gutter system over the white trim.
Got it. Just going to go on all the fascia boards, right? On the eaves.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Everything is, all of the roof runoff is gathered via gutter systems and then managed through the subsurface stormwater system.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, John.
And I saw we have all the materials listed on the plan there, so anyone else from the board have questions or comments? John, are you done? Do you guys have anything else to
That's
present?
it. It's all on our end.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Can you remind me again what the white portion of the facade, what material you're using for that?
Sure. The primary large field areas are James Hardy board and batten, vertical board and batten product.
Okay.
And then the remainder of the horizontal trim, fascia rakes, some of the overhang bracketing is all an AZEC material.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Hami, if you actually scroll back to the elevations, it shows the vertical siding. Keep going back to yeah, there you go.
So that siding comes in several scalable patterns, from relatively dense between battens to much more cottage barn-like, and that's the pattern that we've selected.
So question for you guys: how are you handling? These get constructed. 10 years down the line, the guy in Unit 3 wants to paint the exterior, change the roof to a different color shingle, or paint the exterior to a different color. Is there going to be some governing standard in the deed or whatever to control what the fees are going to be?
Dan, and you might be, this might be a question for you, but I suspect that, well, I don't want to speak for Dan or Rajiv. I mean, I suspect the intent would be a uniform homeowners association agreement that, that doesn't run afoul.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is, again, what you presented is very nice. It blends well. It's all in harmony. And again, 5 years from now, you could have somebody with a slate roof and wants to paint their individual siding red. So
Right. So no, it's a valid point.
Yeah, I don't think, Rajiv, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if it's been settled on whether or not these are going to be rentals or for sale, but I imagine if they will be sold as separate units, there will be some sort of homeowners association or condo association or what have you governing.
Yeah, I will add to that. We've been thinking about that for months now, and we'd like to sell them off, most likely, as we think that's the way the market would want it. Like, sell these units off separately to the people that are downsizing from houses. So that's our plan. And the only reason we were trying to be flexible is if there was like a COVID crisis and we couldn't sell them. So, but I think they really should be sold off as individual units. These people will own them and care for them like their own house. So that's our plan.
okay. Anyone
So
else? from the
Just a
board?
quick, to resolve the issue you raised, Mike, could we require as part of the BAR approval or as a condition that if they're sold into, separate ownership, that the HOA agreement require that the siding and roof remain consistent? Is that objectionable?
Is that a question to the board or to the applicant?
Sounds like
Well,
the applicant.
If you agree to it, it seems pretty reasonable. Seems like we could just put that condition on and that would resolve the concern Mike raised.
I agree.
So the condition would be that any subsequent sale of the lot or separate units would have to be accompanied by an HOA agreement. Would the HOA agreement have to be reviewed by the village or by this board, or?
No, I don't think it would have to be reviewed. It would just be a continuing condition that any governing document would require that the siding and roofing uniform.
I mean, I can talk to Rajiv, and it seems reasonable to me because I don't expect. I mean, I understand most people who would be purchasing a unit like this would probably want something like that in place, so they don't buy it in their neighbor, colors their 1/5 purple. But I don't want to speak on behalf of Rajiv if he's.
Well, if my legal team thinks it's okay, I think it's okay. It sounds reasonable to me.
Well, I would suggest that it 99.9% of the time it's an embedded incremental notion in homeowners associations, and
Right.
very common.
I'm just saying we make it explicit since the concern was raised, but
Sure.
It's fair.
Anyone else, comments, questions on the board? All right, well, that said, then I would call for a motion to approve, and then we'll do a roll call vote. So I guess, Jamie, if you could record whoever makes the motion and the second, then we'll do the roll call.
I'll move.
Jeff moves. Have a second.
I'll second.
Michael? Okay, so then just a roll call vote. Jamie, if you could just
Just as a reminder, everybody, when you are making a motion or you're, unless called upon, please state your name for the record.
So Jeff,
Do you want me to do
moves.
it? Sure. Jeff Gasparo, I make the motion.
Michael Aronson, second.
All in favor? And then I'll just read, state your name.
Yeah. Let's, how about, I'll do the roll call. Jeff Gasparo,
Yes, I vote to approve.
Alberto Fernandez. Is he still?
Is he muted?
He's muted.
Alberto, you gotta unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes. Are
Yes.
you, okay, you're in favor?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Seth Roy?
Yes, aye.
Okay. David Chow?
Yes.
Robert Boker?
Yes.
Michael Aronson?
Yes.
And Mike Beldati?
Yes,
Did I get everybody?
I believe so, yeah.
Then
So-
the motion, unanimous motion to approve.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so next is a BAR 35 Ferris Place, BAR 4-20. Applicant seeking BAR approval for construction of a rear yard addition and front porch.
Which,
Is that John Codman?
hello, John Codman? Yeah, we have.
I thought I saw Sue Reardon on before too, so I guess.
She is, yeah. Hello.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sue. We just called your application 35 Ferris. So if you could just give us, I guess, a quick overview of what you guys are going to do over there.
Okay, so we're doing two things. One, we're adding an elevator, because I'm in a wheelchair, and a stairs in the back with a sunroom attached to the kitchen. And then on the front, we want to add a front porch.
And I understand we have some images of that, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's start with the front, the first one. Okay, so that's the front porch we want to add to the existing house.
Just let me know when you want me to go to the next one.
Okay. Right, that's the site plan. Okay. You can go to the next one. Oh, that's the, keep going, next one. Okay, so on the ground level, you see the elevator, the stairs, and then next level. Elevator, stairs, sunroom, and a new deck that's going to actually act as a carport so that the cars don't get snowed and rained upon. Next one. And then the elevator and the stairs go up to the top floor. Then next one. Okay, next one. All right, so the front, we have a front porch. It's going to be, the new roof will match the existing dark gray shingles. There are skylights and photovoltaics on the roof. There's existing gray siding. The porch will just have porch material, which will be white to match the trim. Okay, next one. The existing siding and the new siding will match. The white trim will match the white trim, and the roofs will match the roof. Next one. This is the back. The windows match the windows that are on either side. We've got the new deck. We've got more skylights to match existing. And yeah, materials are just going to match everything. Next one. Yeah, you can see the existing windows, so that's why we're putting that on the back. Same thing, matching the siding and the roof and the deck. So then you can go to the next one. Oh, the next one. Next one. All right, keep going to the pictures. Okay, so this is the house now. You can see it has the dark and the light. And you can go to the next one. That's the back. Next one. And the side. And you can see that window, which we're putting on 3 sides. Next one. Okay, so this is the house right now. And what we want to do is we want to put a front porch on. If you go to the next side, you see that all our neighbors have front porches. Keep going, next one. Front porches, keep going, next one. Our neighbors, everyone has a front porch. Next one. Yeah, and that's about it. But yeah, it's nice, especially today when the teacher parade, it was great it would be nice to get out on the porch and wave to everybody. It's just nice to have a front porch. Right now, there's just a small concrete entrance. So we would just like to make it, we think it'll improve the look of the house as well.
Okay. Questions from the board? Part of the application?
How wide, you said the new deck or the new deck extension is going to be double as a carport. Can you fit 2 cars side by side underneath that?
It'll be 24 by 24. So yes, 2 cars will be able to fit.
Okay.
So I saw look like a vinyl shake. Is that going to be incorporated into the redo of the house, or are you still sticking with horizontal siding?
We'd like to change the siding. Not really the color too much. Maybe it'll be a little bit darker. But that's if we could fit in the budget, we're definitely going to probably be changing the siding. You know, the old vinyl siding just gets a little worn looking. Spruce it up a little bit. Put new trim around the windows. White trim, and probably that color siding. The shakes.
And looking more like shakes rather than just
horizontal
siding. We think that would be better.
Right. So for detail, we probably want to add that now into the so So are you guys saying you're okay with, or you're going to actually do vinyl shakes?
Yes, right.
Yes.
That's the plan.
So we'll memorialize that in the approval.
Okay.
Okay.
Elevator inside, is that going to be hydraulic or cable, or how does that work?
Well, we're pricing out different elevators right now, so one or the other.
It's just for a very small elevator, only to fit her wheelchair into it. It's really the only reason. There'll be a stairwell right alongside the elevator.
Yeah, it's interesting. Over the years, there were a few of these other adaptations of the elevator. I don't know if you guys remember Roger Pelleton.
Sure.
Right.
He had actually put a elevator in his house, later on,
Yeah, on Ellis Place, yeah. Yeah, because, to get a wheelchair up a stair lift, you really need a lot of room, and it's very difficult. You need, room at the base. You need a lot of room at the top.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, that's what we have to do.
All right, so any other questions from?
I have a quick question, Mike.
Sure.
Just in terms of building out the front porch, that doesn't run into any setback issues, does it?
We're going to the zoning board on Thursday.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the whole house is out of zoning, so.
Okay. Yes. All right. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Just on the siding issue, I think what I heard was there was maybe also a plan to just match the siding that's there. So I just want to say that I'd be fine either way. If we want to, I'd be fine if they want to go to the vinyl shake, but if they decide to match what's there, I would also be, fine with matching the existing.
Thank you. It all depends on the cost at that time, but we really would like to change it.
Right. I'd like to give you the flexibility if we
Thank
can.
you.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Just,
I guess,
just
I
for
need-
success.
So,
Mike, could I see the plan? This is Alberto. Could I see the plan where it shows that no porch?
That's a side view.
The side view of the new porch.
Do we have a front view?
Yes.
It's the back.
So what material did you spec out on the porch? Is that going to be a pressure treated material, or is that going to be PVC type, for the balusters and the handrail and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're going to try to keep it as maintenance free as possible. Use a Trex or something down on the deck itself of the porch, and maybe a nice hard vinyl railings, because we have a white vinyl fence in the front right now. Maintenance free as possible. That's what we're looking for these days.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. No crazy colors.
Just white, gray, and dark gray. Real exciting.
Alberto, did you get the answer to the question?
I got it. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so at this point, I guess, I probably opened us to the public. If there's anybody here from the public to speak to this application, or?
There is. Hold on one second.
There you go.
Hey, John.
We have a John Codman and we have a AR Swan. We want to start with Mr. Codman, Mike?
Sure. John, if you're there, if you have any questions regarding
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I've been Gene's neighbor for over 30 years, and I can't imagine a better neighbor than him. I support the plan as it's presented. I think that, unfortunately, with the way this whole neighborhood is laid out, it's a non-conforming situation with the lot lines, and the structures that we have on our property are not in compliance with current regulations, and they're not looking to expand the actual footprint of the property. So, you know, I as a neighbor, I am fully support the application. I think it's consistent with the architecture of the house itself and also the other architectures of the other houses along the street. As Susan pointed out, you know, everybody has a front porch. And obviously, you know, it would be nice for her to have, you know, that same benefit. So I just want to lend my my vote of support and encourage you to obviously improve this. There's obviously the hearing on Thursday related to, you know, the, you know,
Zoning.
I'll have to go to an appeal because of the the setback problems. But in terms of the plan, I'm in support.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next.
Mr. A.R. Swan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. I would second John's.
Can you state your name?
Yeah. A.R. Swan, 38 Ferris Place. Did that help? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I would second John's opinion there. I've not been a neighbor as long, only 13 or 14 years versus 30. But I do think, I'm not sure who mentioned it, but today was a good example. If you want to talk about community, we were all out on our front porches today for the teachers, and I support this fully. Just here to give my support to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, yeah.
Yep.
Anyone else from the public or? Okay.
We have 3 other people and they're all, I think, architects. So.
Okay. So I think that said, we'll, Amanda, if you could do a roll call. I'll need a nomination first. Have a nomination to approve BRR submitted.
Yeah, so I'm assuming you want to do a motion to approve BAR, hold on, what is it? Motion to approve BAR 04-20. So is there a motion?
Yeah, Bobby Bowker, motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Jeff,
Seth?
you got it, Seth.
That's right. I'll second.
Okay, and then a roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Alberto?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that brings to a close the BR aspect of the meeting. I'm looking on the agenda. I guess the next thing is the Planning Board 3-20 Secor Road. Jaime, I guess you could bring in the 3-20 Secor Road development.
Yeah, we have JB Hernandez here.
There we go.
JB, is there anybody else that we need to add to this list here?
Not right now for this one, no. I think with Seco Road, the board was going to, the last time we spoke about this, the board was thinking of how to finalize the 2 levels, or how to end, which end we were going to stop the change. There was a conversation I had in 41 Seco Road and 21 Seco Road as the 2 end lots. So the changes did not proceed down to Water Street. There was a concern about making sure that the end of Seco Road at the bottom was still had the same ability to maintain as it is now with commercial at the bottom.
Yeah, I would just add that I think both ends of the of that block should remain with the requirement to have a non-residential use on the ground floor. It's really the parcels in between, and I think that the parcels you're looking at anyway are part of that, but they should be given this exception.
So if that's the, I mean, we can then nominate 41 Seco Road and 21 Seco Road as the two in, those are the two end lots outside of the.
Was there a second, and there might have been a second lot on the lower end that we wanted to
That was,
keep?
it's already with the Water Street address all the way at the bottom. It's 2 and 4 Water Street, that's the actual address.
Okay. So it would be, the exception would apply to parcels within those, not including,
Yeah.
not including those
Right.
and parcels. And that's my position. I know, like we talked about it, we started to talk about it as a board, but.
And also there was a question, I believe Dana White was at the meeting the last time, and she did some research. I think the last time there was actually goes back to 1939 when there used to be a furniture shop and a barber shop down on Seco Road. Those was because most of the residents been, most of those properties been residential all along. You had to go back to like 1939 to find, again, like a furniture shop or a barber shop on the side.
Can I ask that we put a map up while we're talking, because it might be more beneficial for this conversation.
I think when we spoke back about this in February, there's the zone here, and then there's another zone that's, I think, down by Sparta, I think, right? Isn't that where, that's the only other location where the zone is?
Yes, that's but that's so if you look at the right, so the two, if you go, okay, that's
Actually, that wasn't bad, that upper
the
graphic.
first one, right?
Yeah.
First one was better.
This one, yeah. So if you look here, I mean, all the way at the top, you have 41 Seco, and all the way at the bottom, you have 21 Seco. So it's all the properties in between that we're talking about. And those properties were named on the memo as well. So we have added those. And as per Station Plaza, yeah, this is Station Plaza North. Then you have a Station Plaza South. But the way that we wrote we proposed to write the amendment, it only deals with along Seco Road. So it wouldn't affect any, all the other buildings on the Station Plaza, which I think was the main concern. And I think we were waiting for the planning board to give us a referral so we can go back to the board of trustees with this.
I think that based on what happened at the last meeting, the scope of the text amendment was at issue. So that was kind of, before the board can give a referral, I think that kind of needs to be worked out.
Well, we do have a proposal how the text amendment should read. I guess the language that I think Jeff was talking about adding was where, to exclude those two properties along Seco Road.
So you're saying you'd have a text, proposed language in the text change where you have part of the parcel for the commercial, but you would prohibit commercial on the backside of the parcel. Is that correct?
No, if you go, actually, Jaime, if you go down, it should be part of the memo, how we wrote it.
My understanding with these text changes, whatever you incorporate in this district, again, this is the only district where you could do that, then that's okay. But we just want to be mindful of
if you continue
zoning this.
So that's what we're proposing. That's you see the existing, and we're saying except for the parcels along Seco Road and adjacent to PWC districts, beginning at the intersection of Seco Road with Main Street and continue westerly to the intersection of Seco Road with Barlow Lane, where residential dwellings should be allowed on the ground floor. I guess we can add with the exception of lots, those two lots of 21 and 21.
Yeah, or instead of saying beginning at the intersection of Secor Road and going all the way down to Barlow, I just think that's too broad. So
Okay.
I would say, except for the parcels along Secor Road and adjacent to the PWC district, between but not including, and then put the two lots on either end of it.
All right, so can I just have a quick question, a point of clarification. I'm new to this process. It does appear that this text is essentially asking for discretion on the unit, on the parcels that belong to this individual only, and providing discretion on only properties that belong to that individual. You may want to consider creating language that doesn't just isolate those parcels, but maybe an expanded view of parcels in that area that meet that same criteria.
I think we're including at least two parcels that they're not contemplated as part of this project on the northern end. Is that right? There's two small.
Yes. So I think the language between but not including, I think that should cover that, because all the other lots along Seco Road, it will be included.
I think I understand the concern, Jaime, but they actually came proposing something that would have covered many more parcels, even going beyond this block down to, it's actually the piece of road that goes under the railroad, the car bridge that goes over the train station. And it would have carved out an exception for residential on the ground floor where it just doesn't seem consistent with what the community is going for in that neighborhood, the comprehensive plan. The section is so steep, so I understand your concern that we've cabined it down to a portion of the block that is almost entirely contemplated by this applicant's project. And so,
I think that I may want to let me, if I can clarify real fast. I don't think that what I'm trying to express is that you should look at this poorly because it's only his property. I think what I'm trying to say is that the response from the planning board should be to provide guidance for this zoning text change. And so give consideration to whether you want to expand it beyond what's defined here or not. At least whether you end up in the same place is really up to you as a board, but give consideration as to whether or not there are some parcels that are in immediate proximity to this that also meet the same kind of criteria where they're required to have some sort of non-residential activity on the bottom floor, but really can't support that, and so therefore may want to also be included in the zoning text change.
So Jaime, just a quick, I guess, point of clarification. The bottom line is these other sites within this district, if they can't meet the bulk requirements to design something, they can't get the residential on the first floor then. Is that the case?
Yeah, basically, I guess what I'm, because I don't know as much about this as everyone else is. This is my first time, but anytime where you're granted the opportunity to reconsider some zoning text that may not work for this site, you may have a site that's right down the block that also has the same problem. And so when you're giving your recommendation back to the Board of Trustees to make this change, they're asking for a thoughtful approach to your response. And so you may want to expand the recommendation back to say, we don't want to just look at changing these 5 parcels. We may want to consider these additional, 5 parcels across the street as well that are also have the same conditions, but the request didn't come in for them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You may have already done that. And so in the event that you have already done that, disregard what I'm saying.
Well, I think just to go over that, the reason why this is appropriate here and narrowly the way I think we're talking about it, in my opinion, is because Secor is so steep here. It's not really, and Secor, as it turns into Maine, in other locations, it doesn't have the issue of the grade that it is in this narrow block. And it's really only a one side of the street issue because the other side of the street is a retaining wall that goes up to another level, and that's actually, I guess, backyards of other properties. So, actually, no, I guess that's the other street that comes off, that goes towards the prison, right? But anyway, so in any event, no, I'm saying in any event, it's a large retaining wall across the street. So that's why it's sort of, appropriate as a one side of the street change.
And it's also a different district. It's right. That's a good picture that if you go back down, to make the point that Jeff was talking about, I mean, there's also different, that's the waterfront district. If you go down a little bit more, see here, as you see, that's what makes this street so challenged to do anything else commercially, is that, the grade is, greater than 10%. And the other side, which is the waterfront district, it's a retaining wall.
And just in my opinion, I think that we should be going for as much commercial on the ground floor as we can in the waterfront district, but this is really a unique situation. It's unique to the rest of the waterfront.
Well, this is an opportunity for us to put on sort of our planning hat, and the more I think about this, if the village really is trying to encourage a pedestrian restaurant things. I mean, this is sort of also my pre-COVID-19 thinking. Why not consider maybe lodging in that zone, like including some kind of an inn or lodging type thing? I mean, again, if you have a prison museum, if you have a burgeoning restaurant scene, I mean, that's sort of a thought I've kind of had in my head with regard to this. I mean,
may I raise a point? I know I'm just an alternate tonight, but I've been looking at this this project and the zoning, and specifically the comprehensive plan from 2009. Now, of course, this is a few years old, and I know we're in the process of starting a new comprehensive plan process. However, specifically for the Station Plaza North Zone, it does make a recommendation to permit residential units atop non-residential uses, and not to allow the residential units on the ground floor or in the basement. Clearly, I don't know if every lot can support commercial on the ground floor, but going back more than 10 years ago, this was the thinking, this was the direction the village was moving, and it seems like this was very intentional. And if anyone were to come out and say, hey, I looked at the comprehensive plan and it says we should be trying to, encourage and foster commercial development on those ground floors, I think they would have a good point that it does run contrary if we were to say, we're not going to do it on that specific area because someone has presented a project and they believe that the area is too steep. And, and there are challenges with the topography, but, this was a process that people did go through, and this is the comprehensive plan we have right now. So that's what I would say.
I have just another question for clarification purposes. And maybe Amanda, if you could kind of weigh in. The issues that are being raised here are issues that could be addressed under the variance process, correct?
Well, I'm not 100% sure whether this request needs variances, but here, really just what issues are being brought up would be kind of distilled into a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, because this is ultimately a decision that's made by the Board of Trustees, a zone change. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I guess my question is whether or not a text edit would be requisite to moving this project forward, or whether or not a variance could be acquired to help move this project forward. And
Oh, you mean
to provide
use
guidance
variances?
to provide guidance to the Board of Trustees that this would have to be handled via zoning text amendment versus a variance process.
I get it. I see what you're saying. Well, I think it would be a lot harder for them to go to the zoning board and seek use variances. So here they are instead, going the zoning text change route.
And we haven't gone through the process of, and we have several meetings where we would discuss with the village the alternative of zoning change, change of use, all of those. And it was agreed at the time that, given the project, the magnitude of the project, it will be a total of 12 lots, 4 of them which are privately owned, and then there's lots owned by the village. And so the project in general, and that was the idea, that it was taking into consideration the different things where we don't want it to go through the zoning change, or which one was the best way to go about it. And it was decided in those meetings with, I believe it was Mr. Kahan and the village, that the best route was to go for a text amendment. And we were trying to find a way that where we propose a text amendment, it did not alter the rest of the Station Plaza. And that's why the text amendment talks about Seco Road. So it doesn't apply to the rest, to Border Street, to Main Street, and also to Station Plaza South. All of those things were taken into consideration. And given the slope, again, this is very peculiar. I mean, you see in the photo, I mean, this is greater, than 10%. All these houses right now and have been for a long time residential. So we're not proposing removing commercial. Again, we have to go back historically to prior 1950 to find commercial uses here.
So I guess the variance versus text change was already a process that was vetted, and given the scope of this project, they went the text change route.
I guess the question, are we prepared tonight to kind of summarize something and get it back to the village board? Because again, we're tasked with the review and recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel we've met that hurdle yet, I guess.
I believe that the last meeting, the remaining hurdle, it was, again, make sure that we have I guess, bookends to this proposal, which are those 2 lots we saw in the picture. So it didn't affect the end lot, the Water Street, and the first lot up on Seco Road.
So I know that there's some provisions in our code that give the planning board the discretion on a case-by-case basis to, like, for instance, in the village center district, waive a parking requirement or something. And that's something that the planning board can do without, the applicant having to get a variance. I think the way you wrote this would just be a straight permission to use residential on the ground floor. And so I'm wondering if another way to just make sure that we're not blanketly allowing residential without considering like the details of what the projects that, the project this is, I guess, attached to is still pretty undefined. We don't have a lot of the details. So if maybe a recommendation would be, if they're going to make a text amendment, that they also say that if the planning board decides it's appropriate.
Like the creation of a special permit versus a conditional use?
That came up at the last meeting.
I'm sorry. I believe it is already a conditional use. I guess we spoke that, I guess, at the last meeting. Residential is a conditional use in this zone, so we will be back to the planning board for that as well.
I apologize because I was not at the last meeting, so I'm not at all familiar with this, but I just want to clarify a couple of things. All we're being asked to decide upon today is this proposed text change, correct? We're not looking at any aspects of the project itself.
Right.
Right, okay. And can I see is there any way that the language could be written that doesn't, or maybe it's already here and I'm not seeing it, is there any way that it could be written to not preclude ground floor commercial use should some future user decide that they can deal with the grade? Or, I mean, I don't know if that's unrealistic, but it seems to me that it would provide greater flexibility if we could cover both potential scenarios.
Well, commercial, it is permitted.
So it's already, but I mean, I guess my question, the question I'm asking is the proposed revision, does it preclude ground floor commercial the way it's now written?
No.
No, okay.
It is that, the residential unit will be allowed at the ground level.
Ground floor, okay. Yeah. And again, forgive my question here, but can somebody explain why this is not spot zoning?
Well, really, it's kind of a sliding scale, I would say, in terms of what one would consider spot zoning and what one wouldn't. But here, I have to say, I think that normally spot zoning looks like, one lot, surrounded by lots of other lots that are totally different than the subject property. Can you, Jaime, can you go up to a map? And I think that this kind of, this proposal encompasses a number of lots. It could even, per your recommendation, encompass more if you so choose to broaden it. So you could raise that as an issue if you're concerned about spot zoning to the Board of Trustees, but I don't think this would necessarily raise that red flag.
Even though it's just one owner of all of these parcels?
No, there's also a village-owned properties. It will be one
parking lot, right?
Yeah, and there is a mix of the total. The parking lot, there was a different. It's in the back. It's also part of the development. But if you see where it says area of development, those are actually village-owned lots right now. And right now, it also is applied to village-owned lots.
It's usually a very fact-specific question when it comes to spot zoning, and I don't think that it looks like spot zoning to me.
Well, I think also, I think the other thing here again is we as the planning board is we encourage other uses in this district. Now is the time that we incorporate that into the recommendation. And again, I threw out lodging before. I mean, that may or may not be appropriate, but again, it's all what the goals of our village are in terms of, how we see the downtown and, what's happening again with the museum on the horizon and some restaurants. And, again, that's just, again, my kind of interpretation of this whole thing, but, we'll talk about this and add to it. So
I also just wanted to, I was looking at my notes from the last meeting where this was discussed, and there may have been a request from the board that the applicant show some sort of an impact from Hunter, since does anyone remember this being the case? Some sort of discussion about height and showing the impact from Hunter.
Well, I think as you head up the hill, you know, you'll see more. Obviously, if the development is further down the hill, you might go 40 or 50 feet and not have a visual impact. But if you're,
But we're not requesting change in the bulk regulations. So there's no, and again, we are against the hill, and you have that big retaining wall, so everything is higher in the waterfront district and that, in the other side. So there is no impact on the, and again, bulk regulations, we're not asking to change them. I think that was.
that probably came out because of the 80 Main with the view sheds. I think some of the neighbors on State Street, when, you know, the 80 Main was proposed and developed, you know, they lost view sheds of the river. So I think, you know, there's a heightened awareness, I guess, on the village board level about this, about not, you know, diminishing people's view of, you know, the Hudson.
Okay, just didn't want it to get lost in case it wasn't a real issue.
JB, in terms of, you know, Mike raised the issue of like lodging or something. Did you explore whether it would be possible to do, if you did some kind of commercial on Secor there, to have like parking underneath for commercial uses even above that, so that, you know, like even though Secor is sort of a difficult road to navigate, and whether you could do commercial with the enclosed parking where once the car comes off the street, you know, you've sort of dealt with the issue of the grade.
We haven't explored like lodging or that. We did.
Well, not even lodging, but some other type of commercial use where you had parking.
We have explored, and we're looking at providing parking at the bottom of Secor Road, and, you know, of course, an expansion to the lot and to the parking lot. That was part of the discussion with the board of trustees. But per se, to make a lodging there, no. We were looking at residential specifically.
Well, I'm just asking about another type of commercial use. Forget about lodging for a minute.
No, we haven't looked into something that, because again, the idea was to continue the residential along the Secor Road, and if it's not, you know, if it's not lodging, I mean, commercial office space, I guess right now is kind of not something we looking into right now.
So I have another question, and this is for you, Amanda. You know, normally in my experience, when you have a project that is planned that requires a zoning text change, as a part of the process of submitting for the zoning text change, you have to go through seeker, and seeker, I thought, required you to submit the proposed plan of the project as a part of the zoning text change as well. So that seeker could at least consider the project that is at least being thought about as it's connected to the final piece, right? So that the zoning text change was not being considered separate and apart from the site plan and site-specific project.
Are you concerned about segmentation?
Well, I'm concerned about like whether or not there's if there is a project that has been thought of and that's sort of necessitating the zoning text change, I'm concerned that maybe they're not considering that project at the same time as they're considering the zoning text change, and whether or not they should be.
Well, Jaime, there is the project itself has many pieces, many components. Is the development the lots that the a client currently own, also developing the village lot, and also there was conversation about in design presentations about adding to the parking lot right now that faces Main Street. So the project itself has different parts, but again, through the process, when we started the discussion with the board of trustees in management, the idea was to start with that this was like the first step. We did have a presentation last year. Actually, we had two presentations to the board of trustees. We did, I think one of them was in public meeting or open meeting to the public. So the discussion was had, and we did a presentation of the project. So then, again, as part of the process, we decided that the next step should be to continue with the text amendment.
Just one follow-up on Jaime's question. Even for just the zoning text change itself, doesn't there have to be like a determination of significance, even aside from, I mean, I understand there's like maybe even a segmentation issue, but just for this, what the Board of Trustees, I don't know what the history is in the Board of Trustees, but, or is that anticipated that you would commence the process after the planning board made its referral?
Yes, so I'm actually, I haven't been at the Board of Trustees proceedings on this particular application. I'm not sure, you know, if they've, I'm 100% sure that they're the lead agency when it comes to this seeker process. I'm not sure if they've made a determination yet as to significance, but it wouldn't be a planning board issue in terms of your board having to make a determination of significance. That would be up to the Board of Trustees because they'd be lead agency. And as far as any sort of plan for a project that might also come along with this text change, there are times when segmentation, which is I think what we're kind of getting at here, is permissible, which is the situation is when, you know, a project is phased and information on the future phases is too speculative, or if future phases might not occur, or if they're functionally independent of the current phase. So I think right now, and honestly, it probably wouldn't be really within our purview of how that whole process has been determined. I think it's probably more at the village board and village council's level of who's been determining what should be submitted when. But I think it's okay at this point, given what JB just said in terms of the discussions that have been had with the Board of Trustees, that we have what we have before us for you all to give your referral.
And we're just making like when we send it back, we're essentially just giving comments. We're not voting on it. It's their ultimate determination.
That's right. It's their ultimate determination. They're looking for a report from you, and you know, there's certain things in the code that a report would address, which, you know, ultimately when we boil down what you've all discussed here, it will, you know, address whether the change is consistent with the aims and principles embodied in the law as the particular districts concerned, which I think you've talked about, which areas, land uses, buildings, and establishments in the village will be directly affected by this change and how they will be affected. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit more. The indirect implications of the change in its effect on other regulations, and whether this proposed amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the LWRP. So that's kind of what the code says that your report in this situation has to cover.
Yeah, I mean, these are interesting scenarios because JB and his client could have waited maybe till the comp plan was further along, and you know, they could advocate for these zoning, you know, these text changes in the new comp plan. But you know, he's basically doing it now because, you know, we don't know how long the comp plan will take to get to the, you know, the finish line.
Right, and the comp plan is a village-driven process, so it's you know, here he and his client are in the driver's seat.
Right. So, and again, we're supposed to give this a hard look. I mean, you know, the village board isn't the planning board. They're relying on us to, like Amanda laid out all those different points, you know, see where else this is affected, more other zones, or, you know, how this would, you know, play out. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to have an answer tonight. And I know, you know, I'm also conscious about, I know the clock is sort of spinning. I mean, we got this in February. In theory, I guess you have 2 months to work on it, but we're obviously now in March, and with everything that's happened in, you know, externally right now, we're probably.
So in terms of the timing, I know that JB Stewart Kahan Village Council had communicated with the attorney on this application. I'm not sure if he's still working with you, and you know, they had agreed that the board would kind of have as much time as it needed given the situation that we're all in with COVID-19. So I would hope that you would at least give them, the board, another month to go through this.
I don't think waiting until the next meeting it will be an issue with my client, and I would like to have some sort of guidance if there's something else that we need to provide us. There's a question, so in the way we can wrap this around for the next meeting. So it seems to me, I mean, we can bring the general presentation that we had for the Board of Trustees, which I think we presented the last time to your board as well. We can talk about that. And I don't know what else we can explore. I mean, I think those items that we discussed before, alternate ways to exploring this, we kind of have vetted those items. And as to put another, you know, look for another commercial venue there. We are planning to do parking at a lower level, or have access to parking through some of the lower levels. So we're looking to move this forward, but we do understand the situation, and we are conscious about it. So at least we would like to have some guidance of any, you know, anything else the board would like us to do.
Mike, if you don't mind, I do have one question that might help provide some guidance here, and it's just the way that the text is written. It refers to properties that are facing Seeker Road. The way that the map shows is that several of those properties that are facing Seeker Road are both fronted on Main Street and Seeker Road. As a part of your proposed zoning text change, could you identify the meets and bounds of the properties that you want to be included? And if they are including properties that are on Main Street, that be clearly, explicitly drawn out.
Those, I believe, I mean, part of the prior submittal, there was, we do have all the lots identified and listed. I'm not sure if it's part of the same memo.
Yeah, like the one lot goes all the way through to the.
Well, that's the future lot. We were discussing that about parking. So the lots are, we only proposing this along Seeker Road, the lower level, because along Main Street, that will be parking, you know, or it'll be commercial.
What about that one lot? That's
the one lot that will have commercial at the bottom. So
right here. Does that lot go all the way through? Sorry to.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but that lot will have commercial.
Yeah, just so it written to make sure that there's commercial and.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the board should give consideration that while the property is owned by one person now, if it's not written in such a way and it gets sold to somebody else, and they could decide to do something that you did not intend. So either JB has to provide the meets and bounds of where this is going to apply, or you're going to have to set them at least, or request a recommendation, in your recommendation, request that the Board of Trustees set the meets and bounds of where that happens.
Let's start to assemble a list. And I think the first point of that list is like what Jaime said, you know, meets and bounds and sort of a general sense of perpetuity of ownership and how that's going to work. I think there was another issue raised about the view sheds. The further up Secor you get, what the impact there is. So we'll probably want some clarification on that. Amanda, I guess you raised points about the seeker process. If the board has made the environmental or the environmental determination, are we making it? So these are just things.
Yeah.
Else on the board has
I would add if board members want to add this, that if the Board of Trustees is amenable to this text amendment, that it's just drafted overly broad and that they should cabinet, if they're so inclined, cabinet so that it doesn't include the parcels on either end of the block. Because I think that the grade there is not prohibitive to commercial use on the ground floor.
I mean, another thing that could be added in there is if this is a conditional use, that stipulate the condition being that where the grade is to a certain extent, such that parking or other amenities can't be provided per code, so that it's not just a blanket conditional, anyone can make it up.
Yeah, I agree, Seth. So maybe that, but we'd have to quantify what that grade would be.
It could be, yeah, or just that the grade prevents, parking or other, other kind of code required or zoning required, items to be built.
I mean, I don't know if in the middle of this block, if there is somewhere that it's flat enough, the grade, I don't know if the grade is just so steep the whole way through, or there's.
Well, I think, Seth, what you mentioned is an issue of grade, and that may be a way to determine where you want this frontage. If you do want it considered in places like Main Street, you could say something where, the average grade from sort of the frontage of each lot is greater than 10%. We think this should apply. And so that way, if you have one lot that's really steep and the next lot that's not steep, if you combine the lots, now the average is too much to allow for it. Or if you have on Main Street where half of the block is perfectly good for commercial and the other half of the block is too steep for commercial because part of Main Street is quite steep, then you do want to consider it on Main Street and not just on Seeker. And that's what I was referring to earlier about giving consideration to whether or not you want to expand it or lessen it.
And just to add one piece here, this is almost like it almost feels like work session time now, as opposed to a regular meeting where we want to just like review something and approve it. So, my thinking is there's a lot of good thoughts that have kind of been stirred up here. This should be something that we look at a work session, hopefully next month. I mean, I'm assuming we could even have Zoom work sessions, that could be determined.
We can.
Dive further into this there because, in all fairness to the other applicants here, we want to kind of keep things moving along.
Fair. Just to point out, as far as the seeker process goes, I don't think that, I wanted to just be clear that I'm pretty sure that the Board of Trustees will be the lead agency. I doubt that at this point in the process they've made any sort of determination. They're going to probably wait for you to give your recommendation before they make any sort of a determination, negative or otherwise. And I don't think that you'll be asked to make any sort of a negative determination or otherwise at all for SECRA. So I just don't think SECRA is really an issue for you. I think you should leave that to Stuart and the Board of Trustees.
The only thing I would add though is if there is going to be a larger, like let's say this is a positive declaration and there's going to be an environmental impact statement, that the planning board as part of the referral would get to review that, because that would, I think, give us a lot more information to make recommendations based on. But
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. Yeah.
I just meant process-wise, like in terms of you having to actually take any sort of motions. But if you see any secret issues that you think the Board of Trustees should be tuned into, definitely you should be identifying those. Yeah, didn't mean to say you have no secret job at all.
No, but I think that that's maybe something that we should raise. And if this process continues and we're an involved agency, that we would, come back and comment when we have more information. So we're just maybe we could just say that our comments are limited based upon what we have in front of us.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's submitted.
I just had a question for Amanda on this. If we agree or we go through because it seems like the information that we need to provide or we're searching for is not at this point, if seeker is not involved, we're talking about maybe the number of lots or which lot or tweaking the language. Is that something that at a work session we can agree on referring to the Board of Trustees, or will it have to be at a public meeting?
To move the referral onto the Board of Trustees?
Yes.
I think that it would have to be in the actual meeting to, make the motion to refer it on. But I understand Mike's point completely that he wants to hash out all these details, do that process in the work session itself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and JB, I think it's important to remember that, again, if you don't provide guidance on where those meets and bounds should be for these changes, then you have to assume that your request refers to everything that's being listed there, and therefore it would have to be, considered when they give their response to the Board of Trustees. So either you're asking for what you've presented, or you have to present something else and then ask for a referral based on that. Do you understand?
Yes, I mean, this was there was a referral from the Board of Trustees, so all the lots are delineated in the request. So
these lots here, correct? The full lot,
no. I'm saying we do have in the original request. I'm not sure if we have it there. All the lots are listed, but we will list them again. We'll give you another copy of that.
I think a list is great, but a map would be probably even more.
They're all listed in. It says lot to be added to the village, and we separated all the lots with the SBL numbers and who's the owner at this time. Because again, it's the idea. I think we're talking about 12 lots, 4 of them or 5 of them privately owned. The rest are village owned right now for the project in general. But we will provide the list again.
Okay. All right, so do we want to just adjourn this then to when we take this up again, and assuming that'll be at a work session next month? Is that a fair
That makes sense.
Yeah. Would we like, just for a point of clarification, would you like to set up a meeting, a work session prior to the meeting, or maybe one a couple of weeks in advance to give us, as staff, give me and Jamie a little time to do any background work?
I would think
between now and
2 weeks before the fourth Tuesday of the month, so whatever that is.
Okay.
So can we do a motion for that point?
So call for a motion to resume review of this at a work session next month. Does anybody have a date?
I think we should just get that the applicant's giving it. I know there's some sort of limitation that they're agreeing to the extension to waive whatever the time limit is.
Yeah, to waive, here, I'll cite the code section. To waive the time limit provided in section 270-59A of the code. I'm sorry, 270-59, not A. Until next month when the board meets for a work session to discuss this further.
It would have to be until next month's planning board meeting.
I'm sorry, yes, until next month's planning board meeting.
Right, but we were kind of considering a work session. I think the 12th would be the second Tuesday of the month. I mean, does that sound May 12th?
There's a zoning board meeting that night.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We'll do the 13th, Wednesday. I mean, it's a work session, so it really doesn't matter if it's on a Tuesday.
That's a Board of Trustees meeting, and I'll be giving a presentation. It has to be a Thursday.
We can just take a motion to adjourn the application for now. When, with the applicant's agreement to waive the time limit stated in section 270-59, and then work out a time for that work session offline. How about we do that?
Good. Okay, motion's on the floor. Could I have the motion? Somebody advance that motion.
Jeff Casparo, I'll move.
Okay. Get a second?
Bobby Bowker, I'll second the motion.
Okay. And then just Amanda or Jamie, somebody do a roll call on that?
All right, all in favor, Mike Beldotti,
Aye.
Jeff Gasparo,
Aye.
Alberto Fernandez,
You're muted.
Alberto.
Aye.
Okay. Seth Roy,
Aye.
Bobby Bowker, Bobby Bowker.
Can you hear me? Aye.
Okay. Michael Aronson.
Aye.
And David Chow.
Aye.
All right, so that motion carried unanimously.
So moving along, next on the agenda, 173 North Highland Ave. The JB project also.
Yeah. Well, this is a project that was approved a year ago. Actually, a year ago, March, we were supposed to get the extension. We just received a demolition permit after a little while working with the DOT. And also we have been working with DOT at the entrance and the signal. And now we are requesting, we will be submitting probably within the next 15 days, a complete set of construction documents for the project. So the project has, is moving and we need an extension. I mean, if it's 6 months, a year, I don't know, but we require an extension right now so we can move the project ahead.
Mike, I think we were going to give Brian the floor here to kind of.
Yeah, I think that when we did our discussion, was that late last week, I think there were some additional points that we wanted some clarification on. So yeah, Brian wants to just give us a quick recap on that memo or whatever that he put together.
Sure. So we prepared, I know it was approved last year just to catch the board up, but we didn't have a chance to review the engineering during that time period. So now that it's back, our memo to the board was just highlighting some of the things that were still outstanding. Things like JB mentioned, like the DOT, although they're working for approval, the final layout and approval might be different than what you're seeing now. So our concern all along regarding things like DOT and it's just that the final product might be different, so they might be back in front of you. So it's just kind of trying to get the board's comfort level of whether you're comfortable giving an extension of what's approved, or if you want to see more development of the plans occur before you guys would move forward. With the submission that came in for the extension, it wasn't complete. Some plans that were submitted previously weren't included. Important things like the emergency access, the functionality of the drive-through, like things that I think the board would raise an issue with. So that's why we brought it up. So that's a summary. We can go into specific points. Another big topic was the subdivision. I think it's 4 lots currently. So, they have to go through a merger, which isn't a big deal, it just has to be done. And things is a big item that if the application continues to advance, might just hold the applicant up at the end. So we're just trying to flush everything out now.
All right, so were these all conditions of our approval last year, essentially, Brian?
There was a blanket condition, and Amanda might recall too. It was about, just satisfying stormwater, DOT. It didn't get into specific comments, but it was just a blanket statement of they must satisfy the village engineer.
Yeah, there was blanket condition related to village engineering issues, but there was a specific condition related to the subdivision, and their need to go through the subdivision process to go from 4 to 2 lots in particular. And I'm looking for the resolution now, which might contain like a boilerplate regarding the need to go to get approvals from all other relevant agencies, which I think would cover a DOT. So, yeah.
Well, all those items have been, it's been work on it, and as far as I recall, the lots will be, and they're being merged. We have a surveyor, and there was some issues that needed to be resolved with some of the other lots. All the lots are under the same ownership. So if I recall, as part of the resolution the last time, this conversation that part of the site plan was also the merger of the 4 lots, if I recall the conversation. So, and again, I mean, we asking, for an extension. We're not changing the approved plans. And if there is any, any changes that, like Brian said, that will be included because of those items, then of course we will have to be in front of the planning board, but we do understand that.
And yeah, that was my question to Brian. The issues that you identified that were changes, would any of them be the kind of thing that we'd have to come back and amend the site plan because of?
I believe so. I mean, things like the entryway. I mean, I don't know. We did see one comment memo from DOT. I think it was from back in October, where they were looking for some pretty substantial traffic studies and things. So, the entrance might change. It's all, I'm guessing now, because we just don't have the information. But at the end of the day, if the plan changes and they go to get a permit, the building inspector will say, hey, this plan is different. You have to go back. Right. So it's not, we're not holding it up. I mean, it's just a little, in the long-term planning of it, it might save some time and aggravation to really knock off some of these items now.
So I think with this extension, we want to really, make the applicant understand they got to get their ducks in order, and they've got 6 months or, some length of time to do that. And, now it's just a question, is that adequate for, can JB do that and, within that time period?
Well, we have communications with DOT today, and they have been, of course, like everybody else, they have been working remotely, but they promised us that the signal department was going to get back to us, and they have some comments for us. So we're hoping to complete with that. And again, as construction documents and working drawings, I know that there was Hudson Engineering submitted a plan that at the time was approved, or there were some changes to be made. So we, again, at this time, I think we're requesting an extension, and if there is, by the building inspector or by, session, if there is something that is deemed at the time, or with, issuance of the permit, if there's something that's deemed to be as going back to the planning board, then we will do that. But right now, I think that given the advancement of the construction documents, and like I said, we're starting to do demolition on the site, we would like to, get our extension and move forward that way. If it is 6 months, it is 6 months. But again, we were submitting the only item that we have no control over. It may take a month, or it may take a couple of weeks. Is DOT. But as per our conversations today with them, they were going to get back to us and send us back some comments from the signal department, something similar to Roaring they told us. So they had something, an idea what we needed to do.
All right, so that said, I guess let's need a motion for a 6-month extension, so that gives the applicant time to get all these issues resolved.
Mike, do you think 6 months is enough? JB too? Is that enough of an extension to get everything covered?
Well, I mean, we would like to have a year extension, but I think, again, we are reviewing right now, coordinating all the construction documents from the different consultants. We are working with DOT, so, I mean, I think 6 months we're comfortable with. We prefer a year, but, I mean, 6 months is...
Let's stick with the 6 months, because I think, remember the history of this project was we originally approved something back in 2015. It lapsed for a while. I think we want to keep everybody engaged in the process here so that we can actually get to the point where JB's client gets a building permit. We actually see around getting shoveled a little bit over there.
Okay.
Mike, do you just want to check if anyone from the public is here?
Sure.
I doubt that there is anyone, but.
Yeah. And anybody else on the board want to chime in first, and I'll open up to the public?
Again, just a quick question. By granting the extension, how will we know that the items that are outlined in the memo that Brian referred to are being addressed?
The documents will be submitted. There'll be comment letters from DOT or emails, some materials to demonstrate that things are moving, things are advancing. And, they'll have to make a full submission, before that 6 month is up. And we'll go through, make sure everything is complete, and then issue another memo for your benefit outlining, things might be outstanding, but they might have a little bit more progress and a little bit more direction at that time.
Okay.
Anyone else on the board? Okay, that said, anybody from the public care to comment on this?
Nobody from the public is raising their hand, so.
Okay, Jaime.
I believe these are all our.
So that said, we'll do a roll call, but we'll need someone to make a motion for a 6-month approval so that the applicant can get all this information over to our, our engineers so they can get further reviewed.
Bobby Bowker making a motion for a 6-month extension.
Okay, and a second? A motion?
Alberto Fernandez, second.
Okay, and Amanda or Jamie, do a roll call?
Okay. I'll start with you, Mike.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Alberto.
Aye.
Seth.
Aye.
Bobby.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
And David.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Okay, moving right along, we have 19 Campwoods Road, Planning Board 1418, also an extension.
Yeah. Yep. Again, this is a project we were in the process of submitting to the building department. At one point, we thought this was going to be modular construction. We have gone in a different direction with the construction. It does not change the architectural or what the board approved. Also, again, I think this 6-month extension on this project would be fine with us.
If I could,
Yeah, Brian's got, I guess Brian has a review memo for this one too. So Brian, just give us the, the highlights of it.
Sure. Same situation. I think all 3 extensions tonight were approved. I think at the same meeting. That's why they're all up now. So we did a preliminary review months before it was approved. And looking at it now, I think the major issue is that it appears that a variance, multiple variances will be needed for the side yard, for the parking. There was there's a decrease in the impervious coverage, but it's still over. So, and I don't have any record that a variance was ever sought or given. So that's a big, big ticket item that you should consider in this extension. Also, things like designating affordable housing, clarifying the bedroom count. Seem to be some discrepancies there. And then also there's an easement, an access easement with the neighbor. And it looks like there's a dumpster and some curbing that encroaches onto 21 Campwoods, which I don't believe was addressed of how that would function, who owns it, if there's the ability to do improvements on 21 Campwoods.
So Brian, the dumpster, I remember this project that was at the back of the property.
Yes.
The one that was shown on the plans that I think we even had discussions about it. You're saying that actually encroaches onto 21?
Yeah, yes, the dumpster enclosure, and then it looked like there was new curbing, to make the room for the enclosure.
And is that area where, because I know it's like a reciprocal easement, even if the encroachment even if the dumpster was entirely on 19, does 21 have an easement that's supposed to be have the right to use where the dumpster's located?
Yeah, that was one of our questions of just the details about who has the rights to what, if that those kind of improvements are even allowed. I don't know. But it's there's two properties that coexist together. It's only a 10-foot easement with two-way traffic. So they're going to be some give and take in reality. But before you move forward approving a plan with improvements on the neighbor's property, we just need to be sure that everything is.
Well, the improvements are not on the neighbor's property. The easement is the property is 19 Campbell. There's an easement for ingress and egress for the neighbor, and that being at the rear of the property. And I think we cannot better this through the process. Because
do you have an easement on part of theirs so you have mutual easements or is there just one easement that is on your property?
I believe, I don't have that in front of me now, but it is one easement, I believe. But we went through because the easement was an issue and parking was a big issue as well. As for the coverage, I thought we decreased the amount of coverage. That's why no variance was required. And as the setback as well, there's an existing property, there's an existing building, and we are building on top of that. So there was no, that's how it was determined at the time that there was no variance required.
Right. As far as that goes, and maybe I don't have to wear my planner hat any longer because Jaime's here, but when you're building 2 stories on a non-conforming setback, it seems that would, that use is more intense, and that's something the zoning board, even though it's not physically encroaching, you're going vertically up alongside the neighbor's residential setback on the side yard. That, in my understanding, is you're making it more of an intense use that would trigger a variance. And also the parking. The parking is there's a lot of open-ended questions there that would send you to the zoning board.
Yeah, well, you can't expand a non-conforming use. Right. So, without a variance.
Unless you get a variance.
Yeah.
Well, we could still approve it. They would just not be able to. They would have to go to the building department would require them to go get the variance.
Well,
I think
if we have the extension to this and we don't comply with any of these items, or we don't answer this item because the project's already approved, then that will trigger us going to to seek a variance or modify the plan to address those items. So again, this is our conditions. I mean, we did speak already with the client about reducing the amount of retail space and enlarging the entrance. So that will eliminate the need for an additional parking space. As to the coverage, that's, again, I mean, if these are items that, this is a plan that was already approved. So I feel the same way that if these items are not addressed, then we will have to go for a variance or be back. Or if we had to change the building substantially in order to comply with these, then we would have to be for another planning change in front of the board and be a different application, not just a, seeking an extension.
I think in this case, the best course of action would be for the board to adjourn this request so that you, JB, can determine whether you need a variance, especially for the parking, which I think, no matter how we deal with interpreting the whole nonconformity issue with the setbacks, whether you need any variances or whether you can revise the plans to be conforming.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would, second what Amanda's saying. I think there are pretty significant differences between what is approvable without a variance and what is presented. And I think it is kind of important that the JP make some effort to present plans that are approvable under an extension or determine whether or not he needs a variance. So I would recommend that you adjourn this and request that be clarified before any steps go forward.
So the way it stands right now, this permit or this approval, site plan approval, lapsed last month.
JB did get his request in for an extension prior to the time, so he is able. We're able to do this. The board can make the decision to adjourn, and he would not lose his ability to extend his approval.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of coined this as, we're holding this in abeyance, if you will, until he gets, with these extenuating circumstances right now in everybody's life. So that give you the time that you need to try to get this thing back on track?
Yeah, I can look into those issues. Take a look at these memos that can be shared with me. So then in that way I can see what the comments are.
JB, and I would remind you that it looks like we're going to have a work session within a few weeks, probably the next couple of weeks. It would be in your best interest to get information prior to any work session so that the board has the opportunity to look at it and you're not in this position in 30 days.
Right. Yes, if you can forward me those comments, I appreciate it.
Was there anybody from the public that was going to speak to this, or is there anybody out there left in the queue?
No, just more architects.
Okay. All right, so let's do that then. I guess a motion to adjourn. Come back with better defined stuff.
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn.
Okay, can I get a second?
Jeff Gasparo, second.
Okay. Amanda, just do a roll call, please.
Sure. Mike?
Yes.
Jeff? Jeff?
Oh. Aye. Yes.
Alberto?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And David?
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
Okay, 25 Cedar Lane, Planning Board 21-18, extension request.
This goes to the same, this is 196 North Highland. We actually have a address now for that lot. And this goes about the same, which is looking to, we've been working with the modular company. We thought we had all the plans in, but due to the what's going on. They now submit the plans in time. So we're looking for another 6 months extension.
Okay. And Brian, you have a memo here, so if you want to give us the highlights, I guess.
Sure. Just to catch the board up, this started as a subdivision where where 25 Cedar Lane was a residential part, and this commercial piece on Highland, it was subdivided, and now they came through with a site plan for a mixed-use development. Again, as far as the zoning, there was some discrepancies in the parking counts, and based on the room count and square footage, based on the loading in the zoning code, it appears that they are short of their parking spaces. Also, in regards to parking, there is parking in the front yard, so that would trigger a variance. Another zoning issue was in the rear yard. Now that it's commercial, abutting a residential piece, there's a 10-foot landscape buffer required. There, within that buffer is the retaining wall for the parking lot. It's over 10 feet. Again, that might be, if they're going to the zoning board, it might be more of an interpretation. I know the code says the buffer can have a fence or a wall. I just don't think a 10-foot cut wall is what wasn't the intent there. That's just my opinion. It is on the state road, so again, they'll need DOT curb cut permit, and any other work in the right of way, which includes the sewer for 25 Cedar, the residential part. During the subdivision, we worked with the engineer to prepare the plat that they'll have to reroute the existing sewer line for 25 Cedar. So that's all laid out on the plat. There'll be an easement involved in perpetuity, 25 Cedar, and then they will have to design how to connect that sewer. Once this site is cut out, how to route that pipe and connect back to the road, which might trigger more DOT work. Then, there's some other site plan issues as I'm looking, as regards to stormwater and just making sure the stormwater can function as shown. There's an intent to infiltrate the rooftop in the parking lot, but there's such a huge cut proposed. I have a feeling they're going to be in rock once they cut this parking lot out, which they won't be able to do the stormwater design as shown. So it's the same I guess overall idea is that there's some pretty substantial comments yet that might alter what was approved last year.
Well, there was the discussion of the wall being in the buffer zone. I thought we did have that discussion during the planning. And also, when we talk about parking in the front yard, there was also a discussion of what, again, interpretation of what the front yard was, because it is the side yard. And I think there is maybe like half a parking space, I believe, it touches the front yard. Again, it was in this petition, if you remember this design, there is actually the building touches, it goes almost against the sidewalk, and then all the parking is on the side. And I believe that in NC2, I'm not sure that there was a discussion with parking in the front yard. And as per the square footage of the commercial, that was a lot of it was going to be dedicated as a storage, so it wasn't counted as part of the retail space. So that's how we came up with 18 parking spaces. But again, to eliminate or to reduce the amount of retail, I believe we can do that. again,
Yeah, I don't think storage was on the plan. It was a bakery with the kitchen and then an office in the back. So that's, using those numbers with the correct, because it's not 300 square feet per space, it's 250. So just doing the math, you'll need more parking. So if the yard is an issue, you're gonna have to.
right. So
add
that's
more space.
the manageable issues for the approval of the. I mean, I thought we vetted the issue of being the front yard and the buffer zone. We do have landscaping in the buffer in the back against the property, which is owned by the same client as well. We can look into those items. We were trying to prevent, and this is part of the discussion with the planning board, we have two walls in order to prevent having, I believe it's down the road, having one wall that will satisfy the difference. And so that's where we did a planter to incorporate that into the rear, so there was landscaping. So there are two levels of landscaping on the top and on the second tier.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we can talk about this. I mean, as far as the front yard, I mean, that's in the code. It's not a function of where the building is. I mean, you could spin the building backwards. It doesn't change where your front yard is. But, we can certainly go over what.
If I can get a copy of these memos, I would like to go over those and resolve those.
Jamie, if it's possible, Jamie Kane can probably email those out to you tonight. That way they'll have them tonight.
Right. And I would like to, again, if this is meaning a 6-month extension, if we cannot resolve these issues, of course, we'll put them back in front of the board again.
I just wanted to make a real quick point. Remember, there are only 2 extensions that are able to be granted under the code. So 2
Site plan approval
year long.
extension.
Maybe Amanda, can you kind of chime in on that a little bit?
Sure. So hold on one second. Yeah, so under the code, I'm looking at, sorry, I have 18,000 different screens up right now. For a site development plan approval, the planning board may grant an extension up to a period of a year, and then there shall be up to 2 extensions for a time period of not more than 2 years. So that's kind of the leeway that the board has here. So
Amanda, on the BAR, the architectural approval, my understanding is that those were always there was no expiration on them. Or could
okay.
Clarify that.
Sure.
Because I see some language here about asking for an extension of architectural as well.
Okay, I need to look at that.
Okay. And for clarification, Jaime and Amanda are new, and at the time when we approved this a year ago, I think Stuart was our counsel and we had Tracy as the planner. So, the board kind of acted on good faith that what we were being presented, and at the time, and our attorney advised us, we obviously could approve and vote on this. So I think we want to get our act together a little bit better here so that we don't have these kind of things come back that says, well, we looked at parking again and that doesn't work, or, it's an expansion of a non-conforming. So I'd like to try to avoid these things going forward, because we don't need to redesign everything, 3 times and have to approve things over and over again. Let's get it, let's get it right the first time.
Yeah, good call.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm curious how we got this far. We approved the site plan, and it seems like there's some pretty significant issues identified here. Were these the result of new plans that were submitted, or is this just we took a review of what we approved and saw these issues?
I just know maybe it was just a lack of review, because nothing came from our office on this application. We just weren't involved with the village at that time. Those months. I remember seeing this when JD first came in,
I could have sworn I saw a Keller
Yeah.
Sessions memo on this.
I thought we dealt with the, and there was the conditions upon your comments, Brian, but here we are, and let's, if I get a copy of these emails, then I can look at them and see what the issues are and we can move
Okay,
forward.
so at this point, if there's anybody in the public to speak to this? Anybody?
Nobody from the public.
Okay, so do we want to do 6 months, give JB time to get these issues resolved with Brian and get this thing back on track?
I would ask the question if 6 months is a sufficient amount of time to get this back on track and get it approved. And you know, if it would essentially cut it from a year and a half, from 2 years potentially to a year and a half. Is it definitely going to get done within a year and a half?
Definitely, I think I appreciate what you're saying, Jaime. So if we can get a year extension, it'd be better in this case.
My question is, if we were to adjourn it, that doesn't count it. You know, that lets us continue to look at it and look at some of these issues, and that wouldn't count as one of the extensions. So we could theoretically adjourn it for a month and then grant the extension, and we're not like potentially, you know, limiting the total amount of time that could be taken to get this project done.
I prefer if we
sort of off the clock.
I prefer we get the extension done on this one, and then, I mean, already campus, we are working on it. We adjourning that one. So this one, I don't foresee the issues as being that difficult to resolve, or I think we can resolve that.
The only reason why I agree, think that an adjournment might work is if there are potential issues that might require a variance, for the same reason that you adjourned Camp Woods. If JB has to consider whether any variances are required, it would kind of present the same situation. But that's up to the board.
Yeah, so because if we give you 6 months, then the most total time of extensions you can get is a year and a half, I think. But if we adjourn, then we can possibly give you a year. I'm just saying that, like.
Right, but in this case, we have issues as well. You know, all the issues we're talking about, size of the bakery, parking, seeking a variance, or doing something with the retaining walls in the back. There are other issues involved here, which is, modular company involvement and other issues involved that kind of require have a approval on the table. So in this case, I will appreciate if we have an extension on board.
So a year extension is requested.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would take careful consideration of Amanda's concern about a variance being needed here. I understand why you would want to move forward, but if there is a variance, then that could create a different set of problems. Would it be, JB? Would it kill your project to hold this over 1 month? Is it would it be detrimental to the project to hold it over for 1 month while a determination is being made on the extension in consideration of the possible variance?
For this project, yes, it will be. I mean, we already slow it down because of the current situation. So none of the changes we're talking about will affect modular construction, or we're talking about the bakery, and we're talking about the size of the downstairs, which it can be reduced. We're talking about.
But JB, you haven't seen my memo yet, so I would say it is. I think it is substantial. So, I mean, let's just be frank. It's you got some issues. For 30 days we could work through this, and you can have an answer or a better answer in a month. At least because I don't see how you don't need a variance. So
the variance is for the front yard parking space, or what are the other variances that you've identified they might need?
If you want, I can scroll down to the page that's specific to the variances.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Let's see.
Number 6, the creation of the parking lot requires the construction of retaining walls within the minimum required 10-foot landscaping buffer along the rear property line. It appears an area variance from the ZBA will be required. And were there any other variances? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's actually upped more. Number 5 was one.
Number 5, yeah, as required by section 270-30A 5 of the Village Code, parking shall not be permitted in the required front yard. As such, parking space 18 does not comply and should be eliminated, or an area variance should be sought.
And then number 4 is about the parking calculations, the loading.
Right, that's not an issue. NC2, I thought that it was, we had this is NC2, so it's, I don't have it in front of me, but what's the front yard requirement in NC2? There was a maximum of 15 yards, not a minimum.
Right, not a minimum.
Right, there is no minimum, so there is no front yard.
No, there's a maximum. I think it's a 10 or 15 foot setback.
Right, there is a maximum which we don't have.
There's no, NC2, there's no minimum front yard setback.
Yeah, so there is no front yard parking.
Well, we're in NC1.
Oh, it's NC1.
That's NC1?
Yeah.
NC1 has a minimum?
Yeah.
Okay.
But why don't we do, let's, again, I don't want to get into, all that stuff right now. Let's decide either we're going to adjourn this thing for another month or we'll do an extension. So where are we, guys?
I would opt for a 1-month adjournment.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think an adjournment makes sense here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Bobby, Dave?
Yeah, I'm on board with the adjournment.
Okay. All right. So let's do that. We'll call for a motion to adjourn it, and that'll give JB time to work with Brian and get this thing hopefully back on track. Have a motion to adjourn till next month.
Motion to adjourn to next month.
And a second.
I'm sorry.
Bobby Bowker, second that motion to adjourn.
Okay.
The motion was made by Michael Aronson.
Yep.
I can do the roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Alberto?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And David?
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
Moving right along, 34 State Street, Austin Land LLC, V1-19.
All right, that's Hudson Step. JB, I'm going to move you down to panelist. Okay? I mean to attendee, and then we'll move you back up.
Okay.
Hudson Step is now going to be called Hudson Crest.
Cool.
Can you all hear me? Oh,
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Annie Klein. I'm an associate at Del Bello, Donnell, and Weingarten, Wise and Whitaker here on behalf of Austining Land LLC. And as the chairman said, yes, we've rebranded as Hudson Crest. So we were here before you last year for a site plan and conditional use permit. This is for the mixed use project at 34 State Street, 21 James Street, and 27 Hunter Street. It's the historic rehabilitation of the Smith Robinson House into live workspace, 189 dwelling units with 19 affordable, and 236 parking spaces in an automated parking garage. This project also required 6 area variances from the zoning board and a planned waterfront special permit from the Board of Trustees. So after we met with you last year, we got those approvals, and the applicant was working throughout the fall on the demolition, which was completed late February, early March, right before all of this craziness began. So we're really happy that the Printex warehouse buildings have been demolished, and the applicant's continuing to work with the building department and the ICC on finalizing the construction drawings and getting this project to move forward as soon as we can. So we are requesting a 1-year extension of the site plan and conditional use permit approval. So if you have any questions.
Did you want to go through any of this presentation that you prepared?
Oh, I can go quickly. This is just the rendering that was submitted on the drawings that were approved last year. And then the second slide is just the overall site plan. There's the circular drive linking into the underground parking garage, which is automated. Because of the topography of the property, we required a 1-story variance from the zoning board, so that, as you can see, it's 7 stories on the back end over Hunter Street. And yeah, the last slide is just the approval history and all the approvals that we got last year.
You guys get BAR approval? I don't see that on the.
Yeah, so we did. So actually, you might remember this project was approved back in 2015, had received a number of extensions, and they lapsed. There were some issues with getting the building permit. Some permits were pulled. The applicant thought that held over the approvals and that they didn't need extensions, and it turns out that the village interpreted that the approvals actually lapsed, that those permits that were taken out were not sufficient to keep the approvals intact. So that's why we came back last year to get all the approvals reinstated. BAR was decided that we did not need that to be, that did not expire, as you just talked about on the last application, that the BAR did not expire, so we did not need to get that reapproved. That, and also the certificate of appropriateness for the Smith Robinson House also was determined to not have an expiration.
And the planned waterfront special permit, does that have an expiration to it, or does that run with?
Yes, so that is 1.5 years. That's good through December. That's 18 months. 18 months.
All right. Anybody on the board have questions?
I guess just a real quick question. Nothing has changed since the last time. Ownership is still the same, everything?
Yep. Everything's still the same. Everything's still the same since 2015. And yeah, we're hoping to really get going this time. As I said, the building is down, so hopefully once everything is back up and running again, we can really get started.
Okay, thank you.
So last year, one of the issues that came up was there was, I guess, some water lining projects done down on State, and I think there was a contribution that the applicant or the developer had to pay. Was that, did you take, was that paid?
So that was roped into the Board of Trustees resolution that was granted in July. That will be paid on application for a building permit. The Board of Trustees resolution put several deadlines in it to make sure that the project kept moving. And so, you know, we have the demolition permit. We got the demolition permit extended. Once that's closed out, we have to get the building permit within a certain amount of time. And when we apply for the building permit, we have to pay that that water main relining fee.
That was,
So
I think, that was like almost $200,000, wasn't it?
yeah, yep,
Okay.
195.6 or something like that. Yeah.
You know, we have some new people, new staff, so just, you know, again, a little bit of a history. Go back and look at some of the old history on that.
Yeah, Paul Friolo had mentioned that at a meeting we had last week.
Okay. Staff, anybody any questions or concerns or issues?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody from the public here to speak to this?
Who is P Share? P Share. I thought that was part of your team, Annie, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's just me tonight.
Okay.
That's one of JB's client.
Okay.
So we'll need a motion to approve a one-year extension. We'll need a motion.
Jeff Gasparo, make the motion.
Have a second to the motion?
Seth Roy, second.
Okay. Amanda, will you give us a roll call, please?
Sure. Mike?
Yes?
Jeff?
Aye.
Alberto?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And David?
Aye.
Motion is unanimous.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. Stay safe.
Good, thank you.
So I'm flipping over to the next page, and it basically has some additional business to the board. Then there's adjourned matters. Are we not looking at these adjourned matters tonight?
No.
No. The issue with there are some adjourned matters. Nothing was submitted in time for meeting the deadline. Nothing was submitted that would have changed anything. None of the comments were responded to. So those matters have been adjourned due to nothing being provided.
Okay, and the applicant's aware of that? We're not surprising anybody here?
The applicant is here, and I'm not sure if the applicant is aware. The applicant was provided with a copy of the agenda. So if he had looked at the agenda, he would have seen that it was listed as adjourned. So he should not be surprised.
Okay.
But we do have the applicant here. He just didn't submit anything in time for it to be sent to the public.
Again, if we're gonna have a work session in 2 weeks, I'd really like to get some of these things kind of, further down the road than, just, again, adjournment after adjournment. So whatever we have to do as our team with the developers team, get this, moving and getting it closer to some resolution.
Yeah, there are some issues that pertain to these adjournments as well that you're going to be discussing later in the agenda as it refers to the policy regarding multiple adjournments. So you're going to want to talk about those eventually as that matter is going to come up. I don't know if it makes sense to do that now or to wait until that agenda item.
Well, so on the adjournment matters, we know Sing Sing isn't, speak to this, but I'm assuming Pete Chernoff, which is 65 Main and 14 Brandreth, is here with JB, so they'll probably want to have an opportunity to at least address us. And I think we probably should give them the opportunity, but with clear understanding that we want to get this thing moving along. Maple, I guess, JB, that's a JB project too, so you want to bring them back on.
Okay, I don't think I'm clear on your request. Are you requesting to hear from the individuals?
Well, I think we should let JB know that these things are adjourned, because I think the applicant is here, but with the understanding that we want to get this thing moving, and there's a work session in hopefully 2 weeks where we can get this further along.
Okay, yeah, Pete Chernoff is here.
Okay.
I think that's who Pete Cher is.
Yeah.
I just figuring that out now.
Yeah, that's who I am.
All right.
I was here under the mistaken impression that we're actually going to work on my projects tonight, but unaware that they were adjourned and that nothing had been submitted.
Right.
Unpleasantly so, but what can I do?
So since the last time Pete you were in front of us, I mean, I don't know if you were here when Amanda started up in January, but we now have a planner, Jaime Martinez. So
we met the other day, I think, at the Board of Trustees meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
And we're gonna, the plan is to have a work session in 2 weeks, and I'd really like to get this thing moving again and try to get this, further along. Me personally speaking, the rest of the board can chime in if they so choose.
Well, there's also a whole other aspect of 1416 Brandreth where we've, I thought, requested to put a couple of dormers on the roof and extend up into the attic for the residential portion. Something which I fairly desperately needed an approval on so I could work. But it sounds like none of that's been submitted. So I'm at a loss.
Maybe Brian, can you chime in about this?
Yeah, I mean, nothing has been submitted for this meeting or even the previous. I mean, it's been a long window open. I even emailed your engineer who did the soil testing for Brandreth to start, and asked him a month ago if he was developing plans. He never responded, so I'm at a loss too.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I don't know what else I could say.
Pete, I just wanted to have the opportunity to, let you know that, we wanted to get this thing moving, and, with all the things that have happened with, the cancellation of March's meeting, and now we're doing these Zoom type meetings, we have new staff. So more like, I guess, a pep talk on my part to just try to get everybody working together and get this thing done. There's a few of them on there that are.
Yeah, and Pete, if you, I'm not sure if you have my contact information, but you can contact me tomorrow, as early as you want, to see if we can get some clarification on how this got to this point and to help make sure that there's no further delay in any of this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, Hunter, we know that Sing Sing's on hold. And then Marble, again, it's adjourned. So JB, is JB on now, or is he muted?
Yeah. The informal, well, there's the informal discussion of 132, 134 Croton Avenue.
Yeah, my understanding was we weren't going to do that one tonight, but let's get JB on to find out about that.
I don't know where you landed with that. I wasn't sure if that was an adjourned matter, the informal discussion. I'm not sure. Maybe Jamie, do you recall where we ended up with that?
I thought we were going to hear it, but that's what I thought we had discussed.
Yeah.
Well, it is on the agenda.
Is JB ready to present it? It's his project?
I had a conversation with JB probably 3 or 4 weeks ago about this, and I think, the general concept of what he was proposing, I kind of didn't think was a great idea, and I kind of said to him, why don't you go back and rethink it? But I don't want to speak for him, so once he gets on.
I think he just needs to unmute himself.
He's on mute.
JB, you're off mute now.
And hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Just for the record, the prior presentation with Peter Chernoff, there are two I know the engineering is left to do, but the board has never reviewed with us the ARB, and that was submitted for the February meeting. Jaime, I know you haven't been around, and that has never been reviewed by the board. So I don't think it was fair to say that nothing has been submitted, because we have dormers, we have architectural review board items that need to be reviewed for both projects, and I was hoping to have that done, but I guess that's too late now. As per this project, yes, I spoke with Mike, and I've spoken with the client. We're looking, hopefully next month we'll be back with a presentation for this board. But if you happen to open the prior to project, the submittals, you will see that there were submittals done in March of this year. And they're available on the board 3.9 in both projects.
I can open them up if you'd like me to, Mike Baldati. I can open them up.
Especially Brandon, because Brandon has ARB stuff, and we talk about waiver.
What was the date of the submission?
3/9/2020.
We're talking about 1460 Branders, right?
All right. I just a point of order on this, Amanda. If we're gonna start discussion on something like this,
Well, it was marked as adjourned on the agenda, so it's I don't really know that it's appropriate to go into a substantive discussion on this right now.
Yeah, I'd prefer to do it at a work session in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, but I just wanted to see the record straight when we said
With 3.9 would have been on time for our March meeting.
Huh?
3.9, if it was submitted on March 9th, it would have been on time for the March meeting.
It was 3:10, I believe, was the submittal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did, and that was the whole idea. It's just I wasn't allowed to comment on it.
Were the submissions that you made, JB, were they in response to comments that the board had previously made?
There were some comments we didn't highlight it. There were comments and there were changes. Like, for example, I can quickly tell you 65 Main Street, we removed the handicap spaces. We redesigned the building, removed the handicap spaces from the street level. I don't want to keep you, we all want to go on, but I just want to, and also that we did have different aspects of the ARB. We know the engineering is not completed, as Brian said, and that, we have an engineer working on it. There's also a structural engineer working on it, but we did wanted to move ahead with the ARB. And I guess with this, like Mike says, with all this going on, I guess we'll have to learn to be on the same page, I guess. The same for Brandon. Brandon was important because ARB-wise, because we are putting a dormer on the roof that affects a project that's currently open. So again, we all new to the process here. We're all trying to work together. So hopefully we can get this done in the work session. Maybe with Brandon, the changes are minor, so that's something that I can show the board on the work session.
Maybe I'm a little confused now, but you still need a site plan review. So what good would getting a piece of the building, wouldn't that affect the overall site plan? And
no, it doesn't affect
even entertain?
No, Brian, because we have a current building permit for the residential component. So again, hopefully we can all get the site plan is independent in this case of the ARB. And we were trying to submit one entire ARB so the board was able to see the project whole, not in pieces. But the apartment units is all to do with with an open permit. And also what you have here is I thought that we were going to discuss the waiver, which is another component of the approval that we're dealing right now with the Board of Trustees as well.
A parking waiver.
Yes. So.
All right. Well, let's get everything. Let's get everything together for the work session then. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
There's a few other items that have to get dealt with. We've got the approval of minutes or adoption of minutes, and Amanda's got a new board policy regarding application adjournment. So,
I just want to before because they did have a timely submission, are we saying because of the way the meeting was noticed, we can't consider it?
I don't think it's appropriate. That's right.
Okay. Well, then I think, somewhere on our end, we made a mistake and, I apologize to the applicant.
right. I mean, there's, we all realize, between the shutdown, month and having new staff and everything else, it's, we got to just get in, we got to kind of, tune the instrument a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
If I may, the reason why the dormer issue is so significant to me is the shutdown issue. I'm trying to scramble guys around and have one person per site all over the place and keep as many workers employed as possible. So that's, I don't even know who I'm building these apartments for, it's questionable whether I can actually rent them if I complete them. But it's really mostly about, at this point, trying to keep some guys working and families fed and so forth.
Okay.
Is there?
Fair enough. All right, guys, we're good. We get it. Enough
Thank
said.
Later.
Okay, so let's those two open issues, I guess, additional business of the board. So, Amanda, if you want to give us an overview on the policy that you proposed or has been proposed.
Right. So it's the purpose of this policy is to kind of hold on, let me pull it up. Sorry to not have it right at my fingertips. Hold on. Here it is.
Amanda, did you email it out? I can place it on the.
It should. I think I emailed it out to you guys.
I remember seeing it. Essentially, it was a paragraph just stating that.
Right.
It was pretty simple.
Do you want me to send it again?
No, I was just going to search for it.
I have it. So basically, it's a resolution to adopt a procedural rule regarding applications with more than 3 consecutive adjournments, and it's basically just a pretty simple resolution that you would follow. That you would pass on the advice of the planning department and the village's professional consultants to formally adopt a procedural rule that would state the following. So any application before the board which has been adjourned without appearance and substantive discussion for 3 consecutive meetings will be removed from the board's agenda after the 3rd adjournment, provided, however, that the board shall have the authority to vary this rule in its discretion. Applicants who have been removed from the agenda may be restored to the agenda upon 1, submitting materials addressing all open issues and questions raised by the board and/or its staff or consultants, and 2, renoticing the application in the same manner as if it were a new application. And so basically, then there's language about now, therefore, the planning board adopts this rule and directs the planning department to update the board's application materials so that the rule is included in those application materials.
Right,
So really,
we just need to verify if the rest of the board has seen the draft.
yeah, so I can, let me,
And the only issue I had was that the most probably current example, Sing Sing, the museum's been delayed for several months. So in effect, that would be something that would go off the agenda because, there's been no new news. They've been tied up at the state level or wherever they've been tied up. So my concern is I didn't want them to be penalized because, outside agencies were, impacting their ability to get back to us. So I think covered under, we have the right to vary from the policy.
Right. I just, Jamie and Jaime, I just resent the actual resolution to you. So if you guys can, maybe one of you pull it up and share your screen so that the board can be looking at this.
I haven't gotten it. We do have an issue sometimes. Are you able to share your screen? I can enable the screen sharing.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm on. Yeah.
All right. So you should be able to share now, and then you can do it.
Okay.
Or I just got it, so I can share it if you have any.
Okay.
difficulty.
Yeah, that's better because.
Okay.
And just as a background, I guess this is a rule that, has been kind of sporadically implemented in the past, and we think it's a good idea for the board to formally adopt it, just to kind of have to tighten up the agenda, to make sure that applicants know where they stand and all that.
Is this something that the public has to have the opportunity to put on? Or is this more of a procedural thing that we could just act on without the the public scrutiny, or they're having an opportunity to read this?
I think that it's a procedural rule, so you're free to move on it as you see fit. It'll be included in application materials going forward, so people will be aware of it. It'll be, they'll have plenty of notice of it. And it was on the agenda tonight, so anybody who was interested could have requested, a copy of it from the planning department.
Yeah, and I think that it's part of the reason why this is here is that this process is a public process, and you're public individuals that have to make decisions based off of the best information that you have in hand. In the past, my understanding is that there have been instances where you have individuals that have not been timely in their submissions to the board in terms of providing documents that can then be reviewed not just by you but also by the public, but would wait till the day of the actual planning board meeting and would present new material. And so rather than creating a situation where you're reviewing material that the public hasn't had an opportunity to comment or weigh in on, it's important that everybody gets their information in on time and thereby doesn't get adjourned, rather than enabling a situation where the board is considering information that should have been made available to the public, and kind of moving on projects that quite possibly shouldn't be moved on so quickly, or worse, projects that kind of get dragged out because the information, rather than responding to the comment memos that are provided, are responded to in dribs and drabs over a longer period of time. It's just, it is important, I think, for the board to take the time that's necessary to give a hard look at these decisions that you're making, but at the same time, not take any more time than is necessary to be able to take that hard look and make a decision. It's important to make sure that projects move through review expeditiously, but all projects are fully reviewed properly with the input of the public that's required of that process.
And if the board needs to, any sort of clarification on any, I don't know, that doesn't make sense, but Stuart Kahan, Village Council, has also reviewed this rule, and he okayed it.
I'm totally on board with it because it gives the board discretion to bypass the 3-step rule too. So I'm fine with it. It hopefully gets applicants to move the ball down the road a little bit faster, and get their ducks in a row.
Yeah, I agree with Bobby. Makes sense.
Okay.
Great.
Anyone else? Good. Okay. So being that this is, another thing we'll have to vote on, I don't know if we necessarily make a motion. I mean, it's just, I guess we all just either have to vote yes or no to it. Is that kind of where we are with this? Amanda?
I would be happy if you made a motion for it.
Okay, so have a motion to modify the procedure with regard to planning board applications.
Yeah, Bobby Bowker making a motion to modify the procedure for adjournment.
Okay, second?
Jeff Gasparo, second.
Okay, and then a roll call, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Jeff,
Aye.
Alberto,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Michael. Oh, Bobby,
Aye.
David.
Aye.
All right, unanimous passage. Great.
And then some sort of a roll call vote to close the meeting, or is that not needed?
Well, yeah, so we're not, that informal discussion is not happening, right?
Yeah, that's off tonight.
Okay. Yes, then, yeah, a motion and then a roll call to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn.
Have a second, please.
Alberto Fernandez, second.
Amanda, give a roll call, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Jeff,
Aye.
Alberto,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Bobby,
Aye.
Michael, David.
Aye.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.